Hey there. You know how sometimes it feels like happiness is this elusive thing we're constantly chasing?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what if I told you one of the biggest keys to unlocking more joy is actually
Yeah.
understanding and nurturing your own self-esteem?
Yeah.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into exactly that.
Okay.
Those inner beliefs about ourselves that can either hold us back or propel us forward.
It's fascinating how much our view of ourselves
Yeah.
impacts everything from our relationships to how we handle challenges.
Yeah.
And it's not just some vague feel-good concept.
Right.
Self-esteem actually has two core components that we can break down and work with.
Okay, I'm all about practical steps, so let's unpack that.
Okay.
Two components, you say.
Precisely.
Okay.
First, we have self-worth.
Okay.
And this is huge EE. It's that deep down feeling of being inherently valuable,
Mm.
regardless of achievements, looks, or what anyone else thinks.
Right.
Imagine it like a solid foundation for your entire sense of self.
So not tying my worth to my job title
Ex-
or how many Instagram followers I have.
No.
That's a refreshing thought.
Yeah.
But what's the other half of this self-esteem equation?
That would be self-efficacy,
Okay.
which is more about your belief in your own ability to handle things.
Okay.
It's that I can figure this out attitude that helps you navigate challenges and
Yeah.
actually go after what you want in life.
Okay, so self-worth is like the foundation and self-efficacy is the energy that helps us build something amazing on top of it.
A perfect analogy.
Right.
But you might be thinking, isn't there good and bad self-esteem?
Oh, yeah.
And you'd be right.
Mm-hmm.
Psychologists actually talk about healthy versus fragile self-esteem, and the difference is pretty crucial.
Right, lay it on me. What makes self-esteem healthy or fragile? I'm guessing it's not just about how confident we appear on the surface.
Exactly. Think of it this way. Someone with healthy self-esteem has a realistic view of themselves,
Mm-hmm.
both the good and the not so good. They can handle criticism without falling apart because their worth isn't dependent on being perfect.
That makes sense. It's like they have this inner compass that guides them rather than constantly looking to others for validation.
Mm-hmm.
But how does that play out in real life? Could you give me an example?
Let's say two people receive some tough feedback at work.
Okay.
The person with healthy self-esteem might feel a bit bummed,
Yeah.
but they use it as an opportunity to learn and grow. The person with fragile self-esteem, on the other hand, might spiral into self-doubt and see it as proof that they're not good enough.
Yeah.
Their entire sense of self takes a hit.
Oh, wow. I can definitely see that playing out in different ways.
Right.
It's like one person has built their house on solid ground while the other is on shaky stilts,
Yeah.
vulnerable to every little wind.
Yeah,
But isn't there a bit of a spectrum here?
sure.
Like most of us probably fall somewhere in between those two extremes, right?
Absolutely. It's not always black and white. And that's why understanding the nuances of self-esteem is so important. It allows us to pinpoint areas where we might be a bit more fragile and work on strengthening those foundations.
Okay. I'm already starting to see how this deep dive could be really helpful.
Right.
So we've got these different types of self-esteem,
Right.
but what's the big deal? How does all of this connect to actually being happier?
Well, research has consistently shown that strong, healthy self-esteem is a major predictor of happiness.
Okay.
And when you look at the benefits, it's not hard to see why.
All right, convince me. Why should I care about boosting my self-esteem if I want a happier life?
Okay,
Give me the goods.
here's the thing.
Okay.
When you feel good about yourself, you naturally experience less negativity and self-doubt.
Okay.
Those nagging insecurities have less power over you. And
Yeah.
that, my friend, can be incredibly freeing.
Less negativity and self-doubt. Okay. I'm starting to see the appeal here, but I imagine it goes beyond just feeling better in our own heads.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Healthy self-esteem ripples outward into every area of your life. Or for instance, think about your relationships.
Okay.
When you value yourself, you attract people who value you too.
Right.
You're also more likely to set boundaries
Mm-hmm.
and communicate your needs effectively, which leads to stronger, healthier connections.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You're not coming from a place of neediness or constantly seeking approval from others.
Right.
It's about showing up as your authentic self.
Exactly. And there's another poke that I think you'll appreciate.
Okay. What's that?
Research shows that people with high self-esteem tend to be more resilient in the face of stress.
Wait, so basically liking myself more could help me stress less. Sign me up.
Yeah.
But how does that work?
Well, when you believe in your ability to cope,
Hmm.
challenges don't seem as overwhelming.
Okay.
You're more likely to view setbacks as opportunities for growth
Ah.
rather than personal failures.
Yeah.
And that can have a huge impact on your overall well-being.
I'm picturing someone with healthy self-esteem just kind of rolling with the punches, while someone with low self-esteem gets knocked down by every little thing.
That's a great way to visualize it.
Yeah.
Now, here's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Low self-esteem doesn't just make us feel bad.
Yeah.
It can actually hold us back from living our fullest lives.
Okay, so let's talk about the flip side. What are some of the downsides of low self-esteem?
Well, remember, that inner critic we all have, for people struggling with low self-esteem, that critic can be incredibly loud and harsh.
Oh, yeah.
It's constantly whispering doubts,
Yeah?
amplifying fears, and chipping away at their confidence.
Ugh, it's like having a negative Nancy living rent-free in your brain. No thanks.
Right.
But beyond just feeling bad about ourselves,
Yeah.
what kind of impact can this have on our lives?
It can show up in a lot of ways.
Okay.
You might find yourself avoiding challenges or opportunities because you fear failure or judgment.
Right.
That dream job.
Yeah.
That creative project you've been putting off. Low self-esteem can keep you stuck in your comfort zone, preventing you from reaching your full potential.
So it's not just about feeling bad. It can literally prevent us from going after the things we want.
Absolutely.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Right.
And here's another potential pitfall.
Yep.
Remember how we talked about healthy self-esteem being based on a solid internal sense of worth? Well, with low self-esteem, people often rely heavily on external validation. Their happiness hinges on what others think or say, which can be an emotional roller coaster.
It's like they're constantly seeking approval from others instead of trusting their own judgment and knowing their worth from within.
Exactly. This can lead to people-pleasing behaviors, difficulty setting boundaries, and a constant feeling of not being good enough. It's a recipe for frustration, resentment, and ultimately unhappiness.
So we've painted a pretty clear picture of why healthy self-esteem matters, but this is where I get excited.
Okay.
Because it's not like we're stuck with whatever self-esteem we have, right?
Yeah.
This is something we can actually work on and build.
You got it. Think of self-esteem like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
Right.
And luckily, there are some incredibly effective exercises, so to speak, that we can use to start building that self-esteem muscle.
Okay. I'm ready to hit the self-esteem gym. What are some practical tips we can start implementing today?
First up, one of the most powerful and often overlooked tools is self-compassion.
Okay.
We all make mistakes, experience setbacks, and have those "I wish I hadn't done that" moments.
Right.
But instead of beating yourself up, practice talking to yourself the way you would talk to a friend going through a tough time.
I love that. It's like giving ourselves permission to be human. But how do we actually do that? Do I need to start carrying around a tiny version of myself to give pep talks?
It can be that simple, but really it's about noticing those critical thoughts and consciously choosing to respond with kindness and understanding.
Okay.
Ask yourself, what would I say to a friend in this situation?
Right.
Chances are you wouldn't be nearly as harsh on them as you are on yourself.
That's so true. We often reserve our harshest critic for ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay, so self-compassion, check.
Okay.
What else can we do to pump up that self-esteem?
Here's a fun one, and I'm sure you'll appreciate this.
Okay.
Keep a success journal.
Wait, like a diary for all my wins? I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
It's exactly that. Take a few minutes each day to jot down all the things you did well, no matter how small they seem. Finish that presentation, nailed that recipe. Gave yourself a compliment in the mirror. Write it all down.
Okay, I can totally get behind this. It's about shifting our focus away from what we did wrong and celebrating all the awesome things we're already doing.
Exactly. It's about rewiring your brain to notice and acknowledge your strengths and accomplishments. It's like building a highlight reel of your awesomeness.
Love it. Now, I know we talked about that inner critic earlier.
Yeah.
Is there a way to actually quiet that voice down?
Yeah.
Because let's be honest.
Sure.
Sometimes it feels like a broken record stuck on repeat.
Oh, I hear you. That inner critic can be relentless.
Yeah.
But the key is to start challenging those negative thoughts.
Okay.
Instead of just accepting them as truth. Become a thought detective.
Okay.
When you notice a negative thought pop up, ask yourself, is this really true? What evidence do I have to support this?
So it's like we're putting those negative thoughts on trial instead of letting them run the show.
Exactly. Often you'll find that those negative thoughts are based on assumptions or distorted perceptions.
Right.
And by questioning them, you can start to dismantle their power.
This is giving me major mind over matter vibes.
Right.
So we're practicing self-compassion,
Yes.
celebrating our wins,
Yes.
and becoming thought detectives. Any other tips we should add to our self-esteem toolkit?
Here's one that can have a ripple effect.
Okay.
Setting realistic goals.
Okay.
So often we set ourselves up for disappointment by aiming for these huge, overwhelming goals.
Right.
And when we inevitably fall short,
Yeah.
it can take a major toll on our self-esteem.
Oh, I've been there.
Yeah.
Setting these grandiose goals,
Yes.
getting overwhelmed, and then feeling like a failure for not achieving them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think we've all been there at some point.
Right.
But here's the thing.
Okay.
Instead of aiming for the moon right away,
Yeah.
try breaking down your big goals into smaller, more manageable steps.
So it's like building a staircase to our dreams, one step at a time, instead of trying to jump to the top in one giant leap.
Exactly. Each small win,
Right.
no matter how seemingly insignificant, reinforces your belief in your ability to achieve things.
Okay.
It's like building momentum towards your larger goals.
This is making so much sense.
Yeah.
But what about our environment?
Yes.
Does that play a role in our self-esteem?
Absolutely. The people we surround ourselves with can have a huge impact on how we view ourselves.
Okay.
Think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Are you spending time with people who lift you up and support you?
Yeah.
Or are you surrounded by negativity and criticism?
Okay. So we need to curate our social circles and ditch the energy vampires who drain our self-esteem.
Exactly.
But I imagine finding our tribe isn't always easy.
It can take time and effort, but it's so worth it.
Right.
Remember, you deserve to be surrounded by people who celebrate your strengths and encourage your growth.
This is all starting to feel like a blueprint for a happier, more fulfilling life.
Yeah.
What else should we keep in mind as we're working on building our self-esteem?
Well, here's one that might seem simple, but it's incredibly powerful.
Okay.
Make time for things you genuinely enjoy.
Okay.
Hobbies, passions, creative outlets.
These aren't just indulgences.
Right.
They're essential for nurturing your sense of self and boosting your overall well-being.
Okay, so it's not selfish to prioritize things that bring me joy. In fact, it might actually be a key to unlocking more happiness and self-esteem.
Precisely. When you're engaged in activities that light you up, you naturally feel more confident and capable.
Right.
It's like your inner spark gets a boost.
I'm loving all of this. It feels like we're talking about a holistic approach to building self-esteem, from our thoughts and actions to the people and activities we choose to surround ourselves with.
Exactly. It's about creating a life that nourishes your sense of self from the inside out.
Speaking of nourishing our sense of self,
Yes.
there's one more element I'm curious to explore. Gratitude.
Okay.
I have a feeling this ties in beautifully with everything we've been talking about.
You are so right. Gratitude is like a secret weapon when it comes to building self-esteem and cultivating a happier life.
All right, I'm ready to learn all about this secret weapon. Spill the beans. Gratitude can be such a game changer because it helps us shift our focus from what we lack
Right.
to what we already have.
Wow.
When we're constantly dwelling on what's missing or comparing ourselves to others,
Yeah.
it's easy to fall into the trap of feeling inadequate.
It's like we're looking through a lens that magnifies everything we think is wrong with us and our lives,
Exactly.
while filtering out all the good stuff.
Exactly. But gratitude helps us adjust that lens.
Okay.
It's about actively noticing and appreciating the good things in our lives, both big and small. This could be anything from having a roof over our heads and food on the table to a beautiful sunset or a kind gesture from a stranger.
So instead of dwelling on what we don't have, we're training our brains to zero in on what we do have.
Yes.
I can see how that could shift our whole perspective, but how does this tie back to self-esteem specifically?
Well, when you start focusing on the good,
All right.
you naturally begin to appreciate yourself more. You start to see your own strengths, your accomplishments, and all the amazing qualities that make you.
Right. Well, what you.
And it's like gratitude helps us remember all the reasons we're worthy and lovable in the first place.
Precisely. And there's a growing body of research showing that gratitude can actually boost self-esteem.
Okay.
For example, one study found that people who practice gratitude regularly reported feeling more confident and satisfied with their lives.
Okay, so we're not just talking about some woo-woo feel-good concept here. There's actual science backing this up.
Right.
But what does practicing gratitude actually look like? Is it just about thinking happy thoughts?
It can be as simple as that,
Okay.
but there are also more structured practices you can try. One of my favorites is keeping a gratitude journal.
I've heard about this.
Yeah,
It's like we're creating a collection of all the good stuff in our lives.
exactly. It doesn't have to be anything profound.
Right.
It could be something as simple as a delicious cup of coffee
Yeah.
or a funny text from a friend.
The key is to make it a daily habit.
I love that. It's about finding those little sparks of joy in everyday moments. And, speaking of gratitude,
Yes.
I'm incredibly grateful for this deep dive.
Oh,
I feel like I've gained so many valuable insights into self-esteem and its connection to happiness.
me too. It's been such a pleasure exploring these concepts with you, and I have a feeling our listeners are feeling empowered and inspired to start nurturing their own self-esteem.
I hope so.
Yeah.
And as we wrap up,
Okay.
I want to remind everyone that building self-esteem is a journey,
Yes.
not a destination.
Right.
It's about making those small, consistent efforts each day
Mm-hmm.
to show ourselves kindness,
Yes.
celebrate our wins,
Absolutely.
and challenge those negative thoughts.
I love it.
Yeah.
Beautifully said. And remember, you are worthy, you are capable,
Yes.
and you are deserving of happiness. Never forget that.
On that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into self-esteem and happiness. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning,
Keep growing.
and keep shining bright.